Hi there. Before we begin with today's episode, we had one request from you. If you've been listening to our podcast, if you or your loved ones find our episodes useful and helpful, we request you to please like, share, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and LinkedIn. It really helps us keep ourselves motivated to make these episodes and also helps us reach a larger audience who may benefit from hearing these stories and helping them through a career transition. Thank you and keep listening. Hello, listeners. Welcome to Happy Mind, Happy Lawyer podcast, a podcast which is dedicated to exploring work lives of lawyers. We are starting off with our ex-lawyer series. In each episode of this series, we sit down with a former lawyer who has taken the bold step of leaving law to pursue new and diverse career paths. We will delve into their stories, the challenges that they faced, the lessons learned, and the uncharted opportunities they discovered along the way. Whether you're a seasoned legal professional, wondering about a career change, or just curious about what lies beyond the courtroom of a law firm, this series offers valuable insights and guidance. Join us as we uncover the realities of making a career shift, the strategies for success, and how to navigate the uncertainties that come with change. I'm Kanika Kadam, your host for this podcast. I'm an organizational psychologist and a work coach at Happy Mind, Happy Lawyer, aka HMHL. And I worked as a banking and finance lawyer for a long time. At Happy Mind, Happy Lawyer, our aim is to help people build happier work lives, whether it's within the legal profession or outside of it. We offer consulting and workshops to law firms and organizations on their organizational behavior issues and coaching and mentorship to individual lawyers for their work-related problems. In today's episode, we have with us Vrinda Aggarwal, and she's a lawyer turned communication strategist. She's currently working in the development sector, so she works in DevCom. And she's also previously done her LLM from the University of Cambridge. Hi, Vrinda. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Kanika. Thank you for having me.
So my first question to you is, what made you join law and how was it studying law and working in law?
I felt that law would be one really good space to operationalize all the rights, all the political theories, everything that I was learning in history, in political science, in economics. I felt that law might be a very good expression of those very abstract theories.
Did you enjoy studying law?
I really did enjoy studying law. So I particularly loved studying family law. I loved studying criminal procedure. I took electives which were like really interesting. Like I took electives on communalism in courtroom, criminal psychology. But there were some electives that were being offered which had nothing to do with law. And I feel that those are the electives that really, were very instrumental in making me realize my true potential. So one of the electives was a theater-based elective where we sort of understood the role of what public and private means. That was an elective that I did in my year, and it really opened eyes on what all I could do apart from just law. What I didn't enjoy though was the extracurriculars that I had to do along with the law. So, like writing papers, going for moots, and all of that. I didn't enjoy just sitting down, reading papers, and then meticulously sort of taking out the gist of that paper, the citations. I didn't enjoy that bit of it, but I really enjoyed reading about the law and trying to understand how to think when constructing an argument that rigor that every student goes through in a law school.
You also did your LLM from University of Cambridge, right? So how was that experience for you?
I went to Cambridge in 2020. It was the time when India was facing a severe outbreak, but the outbreak in UK had subsided. So there was great hope that eventually, from a hybrid learning experience, we would go to a fully offline learning experience. However, contrary to that, there were several waves that came afterwards, several more deadlier waves that came. And so from hybrid, we went to a fully online mode. All of these spaces where students generally meet and discuss and learn from one another, the scope for that had reduced a lot. Definitely, the learning was compromised. Apart from that, I feel that I took certain courses in Cambridge which were very new to me. One was the course on medical ethics, and the other one was information and law. The latter opened my horizons to data protection, privacy, and other kinds of things, which I had not learned earlier about. And I learned about the EU regime of data protection, artificial intelligence, etc. The quality of education was obviously really great. The readings were eye opening, um, broadened my horizons. Overall experience was not that great, and it was quite isolating.
Was that primarily because of COVID?
Yes, primarily because of COVID, and it wasn't in anyone's hands. Apart from that, at the end of both the semesters, when I sat to write down the exams, I felt very burnt out, and I was not really mentally prepared to go back to India and join the legal industry, even though I knew that that was the best thing to do and that had to be done. I could not evade it anymore. But there was a lethargy that had set in. I was not able to work at my full capacity by the end of the whole lockdown experience. So yeah, that was my journey studying law, but I don't regret deciding to study law at all. I would do that again.
So once you finish your LLM, you also worked at a law firm, right? So what was that like?
Right. So, what I realized was that I was not a traditional lawyer. I was never going to be a traditional lawyer. And this insight came to me because I had interned a lot at different kinds of places. And after working at these various spaces, there was not even a single workspace. I thought that it would be great to convert this into a job. And that was telling of a lot of things, right? So when I decided to start applying, I applied everywhere because you don't get to be a chooser in the way for your first job, right? But I had been introduced to a host of new kinds of things such as artificial intelligence, data protection, drones, gaming, all of these things. So I decided that I wanted to work in the technology law space. So I joined a boutique law firm focused on technology law, and I wanted to work in the domain of public policy. So how I understood public policy from outside the industry was working with multiple stakeholders, proposing policy solutions to the government, and being part of an ecosystem which was trying to develop regulations for an area that was not regulated. And it was really interesting. It was very fast paced because every day there would be some or the other new development that would come up. So the day would generally start with a check-in call in the morning where we would all sort of discuss the new developments that would take place in the policy space across the world, and then the day would go forward from there. What I did feel challenged by was my own time management skills and my own ability to remain consistent. I feel that because I was already feeling the burnout, I never felt like interested in the kind of work that was coming to me. When I started my day, I was not looking forward to the work that I had on my plate. And I could not wait for the day to end every day. I just did not want to work. So when I was so demotivated to work, and I could not bear the thought of going to go, going to work on a Monday again and bearing a whole another week of it, it just became very clear to me that I'm not enjoying it and there is something very deep that needs fixing. And I was also not able to manage my time well enough because I was operating in a fully online setup. So the general nudges that exist in a normal workplace, so if there's someone next to you who's working, it becomes like a motivator for you to also work. But those channels of motivation didn't exist around me, and I was already feeling the burnout. And because of that, I feel that I was not able to give my best, and I realized very early on that I'm not able to do my best. And once that realization dawned upon me, I decided to take a call to quit.
Even if you don't want to go to work, every day, at least few of the days in a week, it should be that, I am happy to go to work or I'm looking forward to the day.
No, absolutely. And when I speak to people who are really enjoying their work in the space, they do actually look forward to their days. So they do look forward to working on new projects, and there are projects that they don't like, obviously, and but there are some projects that they really do love, and they hold on to continuing the grind just because they're excited to get onto those projects. But that was not happening for me.
I hope it's changed now with the new job.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, now when I see myself, I just want to go to work. And even on the days I'm on leave, I work. I'm like, let me get this done. And I'm so self motivated to see the place, see the organization go somewhere, wherever I am. Because I feel so much ownership for my work, and um, I want to get it right. And I feel agar main nahi karungi, then I who will do it? I only have to do this work, because I'm the only comms person.
Mm,
So if it doesn't go on social media, then even if I'm on leave, then who else will post it? Because this is my job only, right?
mm.
So so some people can view this as very pressurizing, but for some people, I like that sense of ownership, because that also gives me that, okay, I can be, someone can make me responsible for things, and I can be a leader and self driven in that sense. I like that feeling.
And when did you decide to leave law exactly, and what considerations did you have in mind when you were trying to make this decision?
Several. Made a list of things that I could possibly do as a lawyer, and those were the following. So I could be a corporate lawyer, which I never aspired to be anyways, and corporate law never interested me. The second is I could be a litigator, though litigation was something that did interest me because it required a lot of face time with people. I felt it's not for me because I'm not a patient person, first. And second, in litigation, you need to be really okay with things not being in your control. So you need to be okay spending the entire night preparing for a case only to come to court the next day and not having the judge be there and not being frustrated about that. And I knew myself as a person that I would not be able to sustain in that environment. I need a slightly more organized space where I have more control. So in litigation, it was more to do with my personality as opposed to the interest factor. When I came to academics, I realized that a good academic thrives when they're able to really be an authority in the space that they're working in. So they choose a space and then they really start drilling deep into that space. And you only become great when you've drilled deeper more than other people. And I realized for myself that I like variety in my life and I like to do different things. And so being an academic is was something that I would not be great at, because I'm not someone who likes to just do one and keep reading one thing for the rest of my life. And I was not wanting to commit myself to that. Also, another factor was that I felt that being an academic would, I could always be an academic. I realized that that option is always available to me because I've done my master's, and going back to law and teaching is something that I could always do. And if I decide to do it now when my risk capacity is so high, I would really miss out on the opportunity to really see where all I can be great at. And I did not want to give up that chance. So I decided, let's pause on the being an academic thought for now, and let's look elsewhere. So that was when I had this very methodical way of sort of striking out what doesn't work out for me, is when I realized that law doesn't work out for me. So that's the sum and substance of how I decided that I don't want to be part of law. I think a very key element to that is this conversation that you keep having with yourself, and the truth that you tell to yourself about yourself. I think that's very important and very key in trying to understand what you're really cut out for.
I think a lot of choosing your career has to do with what other people expect you to do, or what the society thinks. Okay, these are, the good careers to be. But a lot of times we don't really sit with ourselves to actually think about what it is that we want to do or what we want to explore. So, what you said about, being clear in your own head about what you want to do, that's the starting place to decide what to do next.
Yeah, that's what I felt, that I need to be authentic to myself, and I need to um, say my truths, which is the fact that law is not working out for me. I don't feel happy, and I don't feel proud of myself about, and I don't feel excited about the work that I do. I don't aspire to grow in this space. And because I don't even aspire to grow in this space, probably the space is not meant for me.
So then how did you get into communications, and how did you decide, okay, that you wanted to go into this space?
When I decided to quit law, I didn't have a job in front of me. I didn't know what space I'm going to get into. So I wanted to structure that time, and it's important to structure that time so that you don't feel that you're just, somewhere hanging. How I decided to structure that time is, I did a 6-month course, which was being rolled out by this edtech platform called Harappa. And it did turn out to be a fantastic educational experience for me. It went on for 6 months. They taught me marketing, finance, operations, product management, and a lot of these host of other leadership kind of courses, where we really delved into how to think, how to break down larger problems into smaller things, the idea of MISI, all of those kind of things. Harappa also had a placement cell, and I was very proactive in the placement cell conversations and all of that. And I found some mentors within some of the teachers during the course, as well as in the placement cell. And they really had a lot of confidence in me when I didn't have confidence in my own self. Apart from that, what I also started doing was that I became very outgoing. It means that I started forcing myself to experience new things, such as I remember there's this organization named Justice Adda that had just come out with a board game to teach people about parliamentary procedures. And I thought I thought that's damn cool. And I went there and I met some of the people I had interned under, who had also, chosen different paths. And I met certain very similar minded folks there. Then I also started attending a lot of these, I started going alone for a lot of these stand-up comedies, plays, theater. I went for a trek all by myself, with a bunch of people, where I met interesting folks who I could have a conversation with. So I slowly, gradually expanded my ecosystem simply by diversifying the activities that I indulged myself in. I remember I took up a painting course where I learned how to paint birds, which is so random. But I just did it for the heck of it. And at that time, I was sailing on my all the savings that I had from my law firm job, and that sort of gave me a runway to shift out of my house, do all of these new kind of things, meet new people, talk to them about the roles that they are in, what works for them, what doesn't, have very real conversations. Then through the placement cell from Harappa, I got this offer. I told them that I would like to join the development sector. Now, the reason why I wanted to be in the dev sector was because I knew that I want to be in a high impact space. And being in dev sector was closer to public policy. It was closer to the love that I had for constitutional law, for criminal law, all of that. And while it was closer to that, it also had a positive inclination, which is that it was action oriented. I could actually see the difference that my colleagues were able to make in the lives of the last mile beneficiary, and that was really important for me. And I'm saying this with the benefit of hindsight. At that time I didn't know all of this, obviously, but I'm saying that this worked out for me, and I realize now that this was really important for me at that point. So I chalked out that dev sector is the sector for me. Now, in dev sector itself, there are a host of opportunities that exist. You can be a project implementer, you can be a project designer, where you design interventions. You can be a stakeholder manager, where you're working with systems and catalyzing systems. You can be an HR person, you can be a fundraiser, or you can be a comms person, or you can be a generalist, where you're working with the CEO to get the organization in order. So the person who was heading the placement cell at Harappa, she said that I'll take a bet on this girl because she seems very driven. And then they sent me a pre-work. I didn't know what role I'm applying to. They sent me the pre-work, and I worked on the pre-work, and it was actually the first time that I enjoyed doing the pre-work. And when you enjoy doing a pre-work, you know that this job is cut out for you. So a lot of people, when they call me up and they say that, shit, I need to do this pre-work, I'm really not enjoying it, I'm like, maybe you don't enjoy this job. If you don't enjoy the pre-work, there's a huge possibility that you may not enjoy the job. And because I enjoyed the pre-work so much, I was like, मुझे कोई भी job दे दो, मुझे यहाँ पे काम करना है. Then these guys interviewed me and told them that it's actually my training in law that makes me very agile as a professional, and it makes me it gives me the ability to handle curveballs being thrown at me in a very short period of time without being overwhelmed, better than most other professionals, because this is what is our training in a law school, because we study a bouquet of subjects which is very broad based. So we are used to building knowledge in ourselves in a very short period of time, and that's how I've been able to do this, and that's how I feel confident that I'll be able to contribute to your organization. So that was one bit of it. Now, how comms happened within, so there were a lot of openings, and they were really considering me, okay, where to fit me. And when I left very recently, my present manager was also like, when your application came, we really, like 3-4 of us really sat down and thought where to fit this girl, because we knew we wanted you, but we didn't know where to fit you. So then what I did was I really studied the GDs that were there. So for a program manager management role or a program associate role, I'd had to have a lot of understanding of the education space. So like, what are the greatest teaching practice, how to train teachers to teach better, what does a good classroom environment look, how to motivate parents. So these are all very cutting edge topics in the education space. And again, I would have gotten myself into a niche which I was not ready for, because that's high risk. What if I don't enjoy education, right? I didn't want to put myself into that niche already, especially when I'm making such a big decision to shift careers. So then I thought that I don't want a program role. The next role that was there was an executive assistant to the CEO. There I felt that, I'm coming from a space of low confidence, and working directly with the CEO, where the CEO has 100% visibility into your day-to-day activity, can work both ways. Either it can go really well or it can go really badly. And do I really want to take that risk at this point, where I'm not sure what works for me, what doesn't work for me? So then I thought that, okay, this executive assistant post would not work out for me, because I don't want to take this risk of not being great at my job. And then when I read the communications JD, it said that you will have to work in multiple spaces. So you'll have to work on the website, you'll have to do work, you'll have to run social media campaigns, make films. All of these things I'd never done before. But I knew I had a creative bent of mind, and I knew that I also could put facts in perspective and communicate them well enough. So I knew that these are soft skills that exist in me. Now the question was whether I'll be able to convert the soft skills into the hard skills. And for that, I was very open during my interview process that look, I don't have any hard skills. And they also knew that I didn't have hard skills. So we were very much on the same page on that. And I told them that, but I'm very willing to learn and I'm willing to take up courses. And also, one more thing that I did was that I did not negotiate much on the salary front, because I didn't want them to feel that, I'm getting it all. Like, I want everything my way, because I knew that they're also taking a risk with me and I'm also taking a risk with them. So I was like, okay, fine, let me just get my grounding first and then start thinking about how to grow economically. First, let me just understand what space I work well in. So it's important to not fight all the battles at the same time. So if I had taken up the economic battle, because it was a 50% reduction from what my law firm salary was, and what I'd learned from my mentors and from folks was that for the next job that you go to, it's generally a 10% increment from your previous salary. So your salary slips really matter for the next job that you're getting into. But then I was like, okay, fine, I'm not going to fight on this, and I'm not going to think that I have less time. Even if maybe I start making good money post 30, that's fine, as long as within my 20s I'm able to figure out what works well for me. And so I started work in the comms space, and I really thrived in that space. I think honesty plays a huge role. I think being authentic, because the other person in front of you also puts their guards down the moment you're authentic.
Yeah.
Because they know this person is real. Is not trying to just do the job for the sake of the job, really wants to do the job because they're passionate about it.
Thanks, Vrinda, for giving like such a detailed view about what are the different roles that are available in the developmental sector, and also taking us through the process of how you really selected and what all considerations you had in mind, right, when you were trying to decide, okay, what should I take up next? And the point that you mentioned about honesty and authenticity, that's important, right? Because it takes a lot of your mind as well when you show up as your authentic self. You don't have to constantly worry, and you don't have that kind of emotional pressure on you to show up as something that you're not. So, Vrinda, what does your current career look like, and what are your day-to-day tasks? Like, what does it mean to be a communication strategist?
Your day is never the same in terms of the work product that you're doing and all of that. And it also changes in terms of the stage at which your organization is and at the stage at which your function is. So for my previous organization, for instance, it was very important for them to start talking about the work that they have been doing, which they were not covering and which they were not talking about, because they were running around 8 programs and impacting students across 3 states, students, teachers, parents, government officials across three states, and they were not talking so much about it. So the idea was then to speak to people who are working on the ground, to get an idea of what the kind of work that they are doing, and also find the best possible route to narrate the same to the audiences. Right, so that's the overarching view of what the comm strategy looks like. Now, coming to my present organization, so my previous organization was an implementation organization, which means it was working with the beneficiaries directly, whereas my present organization is an ecosystem supporter, which essentially means that they will be working with multiple nonprofits to support nonprofits. So instead of working with a direct beneficiary, they'll be working with the nonprofits who are our beneficiaries. So now the comm strategy then would look very different. I spend like around 20% of my time for social media, 30% of my time working on op-ed pieces, spend 10% of my time trying to think through ways to better the website, thinking about user interface, what would make for the best user experience. The next 10% to think about events, conferences, podcasts, and partnerships that we could possibly have. As a comms person, I'm not the source of the information. The source of the information are other team members. I am the one who gives an angle to that information to bridge the gap between the specialists and the people who don't have an idea about the space.
It's like simplifying the law and explaining it to a layperson, I guess.
Yeah. I'm trying to simplify it, but a large part of my job is self-driven. So I'll be the one who will come up with, listen, we need to be doing X, Y, Z. To achieve that X, Y, Z, we need to be doing this ABC, and then having those conversations in a very structured manner with my seniors, with my colleagues, all of that. So it's a very collaborative space that I'm operating in. So I feel that a large part of my job is also to build consensus within my organization, to drive thinking from the forefront, to demonstrate all of those leadership qualities, from having the idea to getting it vetted, to converting that idea into action, and then also being responsible to whether that action was impactful in the way you thought that action would be impactful. So you have to take the ownership of the entire process from the idea to outcome of the action, not just the implementation. So that is exciting.
Is there any part of your work that you especially like more than the rest?
I think I like every part of my work. I genuinely feel it is actually the bouquet that makes me so excited. If it was just social media, or if it was just website, or if it was just the podcast, I don't think I would have liked it that much. The fact that I get to work with, some of the most creative people in the industry, and I really like the fact that I am occupying a public voice, which is a hopeful public voice instead of an advocacy critical public voice, though that is also important and I understand the value of that. But I personally thrive in a space which is more optimistic and hopeful.
And what would you say was the most challenging part of making the career transition?
The most challenging part was understanding how organizations function and how teams function. So, in a law firm, typically you don't have that kind of hierarchy. Any partner or any senior can come up to you and say that they need the deliverable by so and so time. So no one's really working in a organized setup. So initially, when I entered the workplace, I would just go up to anybody and ask for, okay, what do I need to do and all of that. I did not understand the existence of these pipelines. Okay, there is a manager, the manager is responsible for your growth, your work, all of that, your well being at your workplace. So for me, I think the challenging aspect was to understand how a workspace operates, because I don't think law firms are workspaces in that sense. They're not trying to build an organization, they're just trying to execute things for their client. But yeah, that was key shift from how I used to work to now. It's obviously more organized, there's more foreseeability in terms of which days would be heavy, which days won't be, and that allows me to sort of also manage my own personal goals accordingly. That gives me overall control over my life as well. So I like all of those factors which were not present when I was working as a lawyer.
That's a very unique perspective that you bring. And I think that's because of the position that you're in, right? Where you've worked in a law firm and you have worked in the developmental sector. Has your work-life balance also changed after making the transition?
Immensely. When you start liking the people who you're working with and they become your friends, then obviously you have a little bit of life in your work as well, right? And then post your work also, I feel that because there's more foreseeability in terms of how the work pressure is going to come, you can plan your life accordingly. One important insight that I got while I was making this switch is that a lot of people talk about steep learning curves, right, at workplace. Now, it's really unfair for you to not have visibility into what that steep learning curve would mean. Does it mean more working hours? Does it mean being deeper and more meticulous in your work than you have been? Or does it mean acquiring a lot of new skills in a very short period of time? What does that steep learning curve mean? First is that. Second is that steep learning curves don't only exist in workplaces, they also exist outside of the workplace. Like, for instance, if you want to build a habit of regularly working out along with your regular work, if you want to work out, if you want to eat healthy, you want to learn how to cook, you want to do budget management, you just adulting, right? After college, after you stop being a student, your life changes a lot, right? And there are steep learning curves also in those spaces of your life. And you need to be able to, in order to lead a full life, you need to be able to handle and manage and live through those learning curves along with the learning curve that you're having at your workplace, right? So I think the whole idea of all of these learning curves sort of coexisting and me being able to decide, okay, fine, right now I'm not focusing on working out because for me my learning curve in my workspace is steep, but later I might be like, okay, I've stabilized in my workplace, so now I want to focus more on, you know, becoming better at my personal life, at my health, at my personal relationships and all of that. And that switch, that ability to switch, gives you a lot of agency over your life, and that is very important, and that's what I define as a work life balance also. So yeah, I do feel that my work life balance has improved a lot.
That's very nicely put, because especially the fact that you talked about the steep learning curve in other aspects of your life as well, because that area is, sort of completely ignored and not really
Yeah,
given as much importance at all.
that learning curve also impacts your work learning curve. If you're not healthy, if you're not emotionally strong, if you're not able to, manage other aspects of your life, it will definitely show in your work as well. So you need to have, for you to live an optimum life, you need to be able to manage all of that simultaneously.
Yeah, that's very true. Do you have any specific advice on, how to essentially land a job when you're trying to make a career transition? What were the things that were difficult for you and how did you really navigate through that?
So I think one thing which was really hard for me was that I did not know what the world outside law looked like. So I did not know what does it mean to be a marketing person, what does it mean to be an HR person, what does it mean to be a sales person and a finance person. I didn't know what these words sort of meant. And also the world is not divided into these 5 6 categories. Like, for instance, DevCons is, there's a part of like marketing in it, but there's also a part of policy in it. So being able to understand what are the roles that are out there on the platter for you to grab can be overwhelming, because you don't know. And how to solve for it is also to talk to as many people as possible, be as vulnerable as possible, be as slow as you need to be. So if you need to start from scratch, not being afraid of that. If you need to have a little bit of setback in terms of your finances and all of that, and obviously I'm speaking from a sense of huge privilege as well, because I didn't have to take care of my family. I completely acknowledge that. For some people that might not be true at all, but I could navigate that space because I had more number of negotiables, and one of those negotiables on which I didn't fight hard was the finance part. And I was also not very this thing that I want to get into like the most well known organization which is out there, right? Because for me what was important is I need to experiment and I need to be able to have that space to understand what I'm good at. And for me to be able to do that, I need to also take a bet on an organization which I didn't ever hear of, which my friends don't know at all about. And that's okay. So I think that was a bit challenging for me initially, understanding the rules and all of that. And the way to solve it is obviously to talk to as many people as possible.
And what skills as a lawyer have helped you now in your current career?
Right. I think writing is a very strong skill that helps us. Ability to research and take out material from any and every place possible. Just how, essentially ability to get the work done works. So just that stamina that lawyers have to work so much, the ability to get the work done, the focus that we have, the writing skills, writing and research skills that we have, and the ability to learn very quickly. I think all of these things are really useful to be able to switch careers. I think this is something that lawyers can do.
Yeah, I think that ability to really quickly grasp all these new concepts and just learn something new.
Yeah,
That's really
because your brain is just very agile. Your brain is just very agile. Yeah.
But interestingly, whenever I ask some, lawyers, what other things do they do apart from, being a lawyer? Like, oh no, we don't have any other skills, or we can't do, any sort of creative things, or um,
Yeah.
you dismiss that. But I think, yeah, all of them have the ability to really learn anything that they really put their mind to. What career advice do you have for somebody who may be thinking of transitioning out of law, maybe specifically to becoming a communication strategist, or generally, what are the top things that you would advise them?
So for DevCom specifically, I would advise that so there are some character traits that you need to have to be in DevComs, and then there are some hard skills that you need to have. So for character traits, it's something which is inborn. Like for instance, the heart that you need to be in the dev sector, like the impact orientedness that you need, you can't just fake it. You genuinely need to want to see things becoming better around you. So that drive, that impact brings in you is something that needs to be there for a devcom specialist. Second is the ability to talk to a lot of very different kind of people who may not necessarily speak in the language that you do, and also build goodwill, starting right from the people who are leaders in the space, to actually people who are working on the ground, government officers, and everyone in the middle of the entire ecosystem and spectrum. So yeah, so just your ability to speak to everyone, cull out important information, be excited in the work that they are doing. When I did see teachers and talk to teachers who are doing some phenomenal work on the ground, and when I saw what their motivations and all of that, I genuinely did feel that this story needs to be told. It's an important story, right? So these are the character traits. When it comes to the hard skills, you need to have a good design eye. You need to know a plethora of how different kinds of mediums work together, whether it's filming, podcasting, writing in newspapers, social media, all of this. You need to be able to have an understanding of how of these several skills work. You may not be the best at everything. The idea is for you to have sufficient enough knowledge of all of this large spectrum of things, and be able to tie each of it together to be able to speak one voice. Like all of these things should speak one voice, and also an understanding of how the audience will perceive what your language, your tone, your intentions, all of that, colors, all of that. So that comes with a bit of training and getting your hands dirty, doing courses and all of that, and meeting people who are doing this kind of work, and actually going on the ground and starting to hold a camera and shoot, even though I've never done that in my life. And I considered myself as someone who is not at all tech savvy, but when my interests sort of matched what I wanted to do, then all of this became like something that I just had to learn. So just getting your hands dirty and picking it up quickly.
Moving on, my next question to you is that Now that you're out of the legal profession, what view do you have of the legal profession from the outside?
A lot of my friends are still lawyers. My sense is that a lot of them have started enjoying the job that they do. And those who don't enjoy the job that they do have started finding alternatives. They have started having that chatter already. But if I had a wish list about the legal field, I wish that they invested a little bit more in terms of thinking about what kind of an organization they want to be, what kind of support systems they want to put in place for their employees, what kind of a manager managee sort of relationships they want to build, and actually upskill seniors in their organization to sort of be able to handhold a new journey. For some people, it may work out well when an instructor is throwing you into the deep end of the water and expecting you to swim back, but for some people it doesn't work, right? And not always sort of glorifying that thing that you've been put in the deep end of the water and now let's see you swim back, because it's isolating, it's confusing, and people who are facing challenges in other parts of their life might find it overwhelming to swim back, and they may drown in this space, and you might end up losing talent that could have otherwise done well with just a little bit of support.
So to really assess where everybody is at and give them support accordingly.
Absolutely. So I think that human resource mindset needs to really come in. I think the human resources in law firms need to play a larger role than what they do presently.
Vrinda, that's it for today's episode. So thank you so much for agreeing to be here and giving all these really great tips for people who want to make the career transition. I think this is going to be really helpful for all our listeners out there.
Thank you so much for thinking that my insights would be useful, and thank you so much for having me, and this was a really fun conversation.
That was Vrinda Aggarwal, a lawyer turned communication strategist. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the HMHL podcast. It's our hope that these stories and insights not only inspire you, but also empower you in your professional journey, whether within the legal field or beyond. Remember, change is a journey, and Happy Mind, Happy Lawyer is here to support you every step of the way. To learn more about our work and access our resources for your career transition, visit www.happymindhappylawyer.com or email us at contact@happymindhappylawyer.com. Don't forget to share this with someone who might find it useful, and subscribe for more inspiring stories from ex-lawyers who've paved their paths to success. Remember, you have the power to redefine your career and find joy in your work. Until next time, I'm Kanika, wishing you clarity, courage, and a happy mind.